Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be discussing how much money nurses actually make. At the end of the video, I'm going to go through one of my first nursing pay stubs to give you an idea of how much money you'll be making when you finish school and get a job as a registered nurse. Let's get started with discussing some of the factors that affect how much money you will be making. The first and probably the most important factor is geography. Where you work is incredibly important in determining how much you are going to be making as a registered nurse. Let's take a look at an example. A registered nurse in Mississippi makes an average of $26.86 US per hour, or in other words, $55,870 per year. A registered nurse in California makes on average $48.30 an hour, or $100,460 per year. This means a nurse in California makes nearly double of what a nurse in Mississippi makes. After seeing numbers like this, one may ask, why the huge difference in pay for almost doing the same exact job in the same exact country? Well, one of the most obvious answers is the cost of living. A study ranking all of the states in the USA named Mississippi the most affordable state to live in. The same study named California as the third most expensive state to live in, following Hawaii and the District of Columbia. What you can conclude from this is the fact that just because you get paid more in one state, it doesn't always translate into more money going directly into your pocket. The same story can be seen in Canada. Nurses in provinces on the East Coast get paid less money than nurses in the larger provinces that have higher costs of living. No area of North America proves the correlation between nurses' salary and the cost of living better than the territory of Nunavut in northern Canada. With an average salary of $58.30 Canadian and a nearly infinite amount of overtime being offered, Nunavut can be seen as an absolute goldmine for nurses. However, once you take into account the cost of living in Nunavut, it's a completely different story. Let's take a look at groceries. Groceries in Nunavut are nearly 3 times Canada's national average. 1 kilogram of apples will set you back at least $7.62. Want to do some baking and need 2.5 kilograms of flour? Well, that's going to be $13.70. 1 bottle of Heinz ketchup, $14.19. Even a simple chocolate bar will cost nearly $4. Although there are subsidies available for nurses in Nunavut, the cost of living is definitely something to consider. Another factor of nurses' wages in these areas that we have discussed is also due to demand, however the cost of living is a huge factor related to that. Let's move on to some other factors to consider. Being unionized or non-unionized is a factor that can affect your pay in many ways. Unions offer a multitude of benefits, however, they also come with limitations to those that work within them. Unions can increase bargaining power and bring higher wages to their members. A downside of unions is the fact that they typically come with restrictions on how much you can get paid. They also almost always come with a specified pay grid that all nurses must follow. This is where another factor that determines how much you get paid comes into effect. This factor is seniority. Here is a sample pay grid of a registered nurse at a hospital in Ontario, Canada. The pay grid is negotiated by the nurses' union. As you can see, seniority is an extremely important factor in determining how much you get paid per hour. As you can see, there is a $13.10 difference between your starting wage and your wage after 8 years. That's 40% of your initial hourly wage. Another factor that determines how much you'll be making as a nurse is what specialty you work in. I have a video coming out that goes over the highest paid specialties in the nursing profession. If that's something you would like to see, I'll post the link to that in the description below. Oftentimes, unions will develop special pay grids for different nursing specialties. Here's a sample of a nurse practitioner pay grid at the same hospital as the previous RN example. As you can see, the extra schooling needed to work as a nurse practitioner will result in a higher rate of pay. Another factor that determines nurses' pay is whether or not you work for a private or a public company. This is similar to the concept of working with a unionized or non-unionized place of work. Oftentimes, public places of work are unionized. A perfect example I can give is being a registered nurse at a nursing home. Let's take two nursing homes and compare them as an example. The first is a publicly owned nursing home and is owned by the government. It offers a good pay grade that starts at $30 an hour and ends at $45 an hour. Let's compare that to the privately owned nursing home. It is owned by a for-profit company that owns a few other nursing homes. Their starting pay is approximately $25 an hour and they have no pay grid. 1 year goes by and it's time to renew your contract with them. Because you have no pay grid, you don't know how much you'll be getting paid after your negotiations. It is up to you to negotiate your own salary. This can be good and at the same time it can be bad. If you show them that you were an excellent employee, they can give you a much higher rate of pay because it's worth it for them to keep you around. For example, with 2 years experience, you could be making $35 an hour, while your counterpart working for a unionized public nursing home is only making $32.36 because they are stuck in a pay grid. This comparison gets very interesting when you take into account the top levels of pay that you can achieve. The privately owned nursing home can pay much higher rates than the publicly owned nursing home. This is just a rough example. We haven't taken into consideration pension, benefits, retirement plans, working conditions, security of employment. The list of factors could go on forever, but I will save that for another video that'll be coming out later. So now that we've talked about the things that affect what nurses make, including geography, demand, seniority, specialty, unions, and public and private sectors, let's move on to looking at what a registered nurse's paycheck looks like. We are going to go through every single point on my pay stub and take a look at it. This example is literally transcribed number for number from my first nursing paycheck that I got from my first nursing job. So let's get started with some context. This paycheck was when I worked at a hospital on a standard medical unit. The hospital was unionized for registered nurses and I had a part-time position. Full-time work is considered 75 hours per pay period. A pay period is 2 weeks. Even though I was only working part-time, I was getting full-time hours, which is a very common thing in the nursing profession. So let's go through how much money I made. I was paid for 74.75 hours. Why the random number? Well, I worked a combination of 8 and 12-hour shifts. An 8-hour shift counts as 7.5 hours of work, and a 12-hour shift counts as 11.25 hours of work because lunch periods are not paid at my hospital. My base hourly rate at the time was $32.21 an hour. Multiply that by 74.75 hours and you get $2,407.70. But that's not all. There are also a series of premiums that I got paid for that pay period. Of the 75 3/4 hours I worked, 22.5 of them were while I was on night shift, and that carries a premium of $2.65 an hour. In other words, I made an extra $59.63 for working those shifts. On top of that, I make a weekend premium. I worked 17 3/4 hours on the weekend, and that carries a premium of $2.80 per hour. In other words, that's another extra $49.70 over the 2-week pay period. Another premium I earned was an evening premium. I worked 15 hours that qualified for evening premium, and I earned an extra $2.25 per hour on those hours worked, giving me an extra $33.75. Finally, I also received an extra bonus for only being a part-time employee and not a full-time employee. As a part-time employee, I don't receive any benefits like dental or vision or any other things typically covered by employers' insurance plans. Instead of these benefits, I earn an extra 9% on my hourly rate. I earned $2,407.70 off my hourly rate. If I multiply that by 0.09, I get an extra $216.70 added to my paycheck. This part of my pay stub is called in lieu of benefits. If we add all these numbers up, we get a total of $2,767.48. That's a lot of money, but unfortunately, that's gross income. In other words, that's before deductions. Let's go through all of my deductions so we can see how much I actually earned and took home. My first deduction is something called Canada Pension Plan, or CPP. It's basically a part of my paycheck that the government takes in order to fund Canadian pensions. On this paycheck, it totaled $130.33. The next deduction is employment insurance. It's basically another deduction that funds Canada's employment insurance program. On this paycheck, I had to lose $45.11 for this deduction. The next area of deductions is my pension plan. This part of my deductions is the only part that is optional. I choose to buy into my employer's pension plan for various reasons. With it, I can retire early, it's an excellent way to save, and most importantly, my employer donates an additional 126% of my contribution. This paycheck, $172.75 was saved for my pension. If I stay with the pension until retirement, and I don't withdraw anything, for this paycheck alone, my employer will add an additional 126% or $217.66 on top of what I contributed myself. I guess this is not really a deduction but more of a method of saving for the future, but I'm still going to keep it under the deductions because it's taken away from my pay stub. The next part of deductions I have is union dues. Yes, if you work in a unionized environment, you have to pay union dues. Union dues where I work are charged every other pay period at $105.96. Let's just divide that by 2 so we can see what the deductions for union dues are on average. That gives us another $52.98 in deductions per pay period on average. The good news with these is that oftentimes you can deduct them on your tax returns at the end of the year. The last deduction is income tax. Income tax, as with any other one of the numbers that I've gone through on my pay stub, varies greatly depending on where you live. Here in Ontario, on this pay stub alone, I lost $507.53 on income tax. If you add up all of my deductions, it amounts to a grand total of $908.65 in deductions. Subtract that to what I made in the first section and we get $1,858.83 of take-home pay or net income. Of course, none of this includes the amount of money I spent on parking at the hospital, scrubs, certification courses, registration board fees, equipment, liability insurance, and a million other things I don't have time to mention, but let's try to stay positive. This paycheck was one of the first ones I got, and my salary will keep on increasing for years to come. But then again, so will the amount of income tax I pay. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want more educational content on the field of nursing, please feel free to subscribe to this channel for new videos every week.